Thanks very much, Febe. I've always wanted to ask you whether you speak Yoruba, and we can talk about that. Oh, sure. All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I wish to thank very much Bill Gates for his thought-provoking speech. As you all know, Bill and his wife, Melinda, are simply extraordinary human beings. They care so deeply about people. And I know that every time that we've always had a conversation, they don't stop reminding us that every life has equal value. And I think that's the main thing that drives the foundation that they have both set up. So I really believe that your compassion, humility, and commitment to improving the lives of others are inspiring for every one of us here, even as we tackle one of the greatest challenges facing our world today, which is malnutrition. I wish to also thank Kit Hansen and his team at the World Bank, and I see Tim Evans, we used to be together at Rockefeller Foundation way back here, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation folks, the Children Investment Foundation, the Research for Development, and 1,000 Days for all your hard work and for the insightful analysis of the resources needed to tackle malnutrition globally that we have just listened to. Let me take this opportunity to reaffirm the full commitment of the African Development Bank to working with you all in partnerships to eradicate malnutrition in Africa. The case for a decisive action on malnutrition is simply very compelling. Africa accounts today for 20 out of the 24 countries with stunting rates over 40%. Furthermore, 22 out of the 34 countries that collectively account for 90% of the world's stunting are also in Africa. About 58 million children in Africa under the age of 5 years are too short for their age, which is what we call stunting. About 14 million weigh too little for their height, which is wasting, and 10 million of them are simply also overweight. These are very disturbing numbers, and these are numbers we absolutely must change. We must now change how we look at the problem of malnutrition. The greatest contributor to economic growth is not necessarily physical infrastructure, but brain power, what I refer to as gray matter infrastructure. While it is obvious that a road or a port can add to the improved trade and economic growth, it is often not recognized that stunting shrinks the size of the brain and therefore compromises current and future economic growth of nations. I'm glad that several ministers of finance are here today so we can make that point that Kit just made. Stunted children today leads to stunted economies tomorrow. It is that simple. UNICEF has estimated that the annual cost of undernutrition in sub-Saharan Africa is $25 billion. Africa and Asia lose 11% of their GDP every year due to poor nutrition. The evidence, ladies and gentlemen, it's very clear. Boosting nutrition boosts the economy. Therefore, we must redefine the debate around nutrition from one seen as a social development issue to one that shapes the path of economic growth and development. We must now invest in developing the gray matter infrastructure in Africa by investing in better nutrition for its children and for the future of the continent. Access to food in the right quantity and quality is a basic human right. There is absolutely no reason, no justification at all for Africa, which has 65% of all the arable land, to feed 9 billion people by 2050, unable to feed itself, spending $35 billion a year importing food, and if we don't do anything, that's going to rise to $110 billion by 2030. Africa can feed itself, and Africa absolutely has to feed itself. That's why at the African Development Bank, we have set feeding Africa as one of our high 5 priorities. No surprises there, as you all know, I was Minister of Agriculture for Nigeria before becoming president of the African Development Bank. Working with African governments, partners, our goal is to help Africa to achieve food self-sufficiency within 10 years. No child should ever go hungry, and no child should ever lose future economic opportunities or die early simply because of lack of nutritious food. We must all do everything possible for the children, from conception to the second birthday, the first 1,000 days, and then we must do everything for them way beyond that. And we must support better nutrition for their mothers. For a healthier mother who is economically empowered will nourish her children. To help towards this, the African Development Bank is launching what we call the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa. Our goal is to leverage $3 billion specifically for women in Africa. It will be the largest ever such fund ever done for women. I'm sorry, there's so many men here, but I wish I could help you. We must hear their voices. I am reminded of what Bill Gates said on August 1st, 2010, in one of the pieces that he wrote, and I quote him: "The importance of giving all children the nutrition they need for a healthy start in life. Their future depends on it. So does Africa's." End of quote. I agree fully with Bill. And to achieve this, I believe there must be now nutrition accountability in Africa. Africa needs a nutrition accountability index. That is why the African Development Bank and the Global Panel on Agriculture and Food Security, which I also sit on, in partnership with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Dangote Foundation, and others that are here today, have called for the establishment of a high-level body called African Leaders for Nutrition to champion accountability and the elimination of malnutrition in all its forms all across our continent. The annual general meeting of the African Development Bank will be held in Lusaka next month, and I hope many of you can join us. There, the African Leaders for Nutrition will set out a clarion call to governments, philanthropic organizations, and Africa's key public and private sector leaders to find innovative and effective financing approaches and schemes to end malnutrition. Notice I didn't say reduce malnutrition. I said to end malnutrition. I think we must not have low ambitions for Africa. Absolutely. We have to raise the game here. And when I listen to what was just presented by Keith about the impact of this on our economies, and the fact that somebody loses their brain, you can't rewire it again, it doesn't make sense that we're not taking those actions today. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends of nutrition, let us together end this scourge of malnutrition. It is absolutely well within our reach to do so. And the evidence is overwhelming and compelling that we must act, but then we must act now. Thank you so very much, and I'm sure we can do it.